he could make the statistics come out any way he wanted. And nobody in academia had the experience in the field to catch him at it. He must have been laughing for the last 25 years at all these guys. So the other thing that he does is he turns everything into gasoline equivalents. Gasoline equivalents. That means not gasoline, something that's equivalent to gasoline. So you look at the energy that it takes to make alcohol, and right now, the fuel that's used to make alcohol in the United States, is it renewable? It's coal, or it's natural gas. And so, yes, those are not renewable fuels, but they're not petroleum. So when he says that it takes 1.5 gallons of gasoline to make a gallon of alcohol, or 1.5 gallons of oil to make a gallon of alcohol, that's not even close. The actual petroleum used, including for pesticides, herbicides, fuel for the field, etc., comes out to 1/6 of the energy that comes out of alcohol. Now, you could say, well, they still got a point. Coal and natural gas are not renewable, so it's not a lot different than petroleum. But petroleum is what's running out. Natural gas is a little bit behind it, and coal is not going to be running out soon. But even doing this study is completely intellectually dishonest, because corn is a minority crop in the world in the production of alcohol. In other words, most of the alcohol in the world is not made from corn. It's made from sugarcane. The expert on this is Isaiah Macedo, and he has done an incredibly exhaustive study this thick, where Pimentel's papers come out, they're 5 pages, where he has gone through and done all the greenhouse gas calculations, taken every bit of steel that is used in an alcohol plant and in farming, takes it all the way back to smelting the ore, and he's really analyzed every bit of energy that goes in such an exhaustive way, in the way that basically Pimentel alleges he's done. And he says with sugarcane, you get 8.3 units of energy out for every energy of unit in. And that's very conservative. I mean, this is assuming you're going back and smelting the ore. In reality, 75% of steel in both Brazil and the United States is recycled. In other words, when something goes to the scrapyard, it doesn't have to be smelted from ore all over again. It takes a tiny amount of energy. The same is true of rubber in the United States. 76% of all tire rubber in the United States is now recycled. So the big energy things that he had in his study turned out to not be true at all, because he didn't give any credit to the recycling of the metal at the end. Macedo doesn't either, to be conservative, and he still comes up with 8.3 to 1. This is a pretty damn good energy output. But it's even better than it appears, because Macedo, in working with sugarcane, is not saying you get 8.3 units of energy out for a unit of petroleum. He's saying you get 8.3 out for a unit of energy. And where does that energy come from? Well, in Brazil, you crush the sugar cane to get the juice, and that's what you make into sugar or alcohol. But what's left over is the whole sugarcane stalk fiber, and that goes into big boilers, which then produce steam and run the whole plant. All the energy, heating needs of distillation and cooking and everything else comes from burning the plant fiber. That's renewable. I mean, it's essentially like burning wood. It's renewable, it grows every year. They burn enough of it, and they make so much electricity with it, that 3/4 of the electricity they make gets put into the grid, because they don't even need it in the plant. So, in reality, what you're getting out for energy out, this is a different figure now, energy out for non-renewables in, really is about 500 to 1. Because what you're doing is trapping solar energy, and that's where all this energy comes from. The amount of petroleum used or non-renewables used in the production of alcohol is so small that it's about a 500 to 1 return. Why? Brazilians, they must use fertilizer, right? And fertilizer is made from natural gas. Well, let's talk about this. We've already talked about, and this is going to get us back to corn. And then we'll see how it works with sugarcane. Because we have several questions here we can tie up very neatly with one thing. When you grow corn, you're going to learn some things that they didn't teach you in biology at school. When you grow corn, corn is primarily made of cellulose. Cellulose is plant fiber. Cellulose is made from thousands of sugar molecules linked together. Okay? Starch is 35 sugar molecules linked together, and of course, sugar is produced by itself. So, when you grow corn, for every pound of grain that you harvest from the plant, you get 2.5 pounds of stalk. Now, I'm going to have to do a little segue here about greenhouse gases, because this is part of Macedo's study and part of corn too.
How do you spell his name, please?
Macedo. People in the oil business are fond of saying that alcohol puts out just as much carbon dioxide as gasoline. 20 pounds of carbon dioxide per gallon of fuel goes out the exhaust pipe, whether it's gasoline or alcohol. So they say alcohol is not any good for the environment. But, as you remember from earlier in the talk, this plant takes in carbon dioxide, takes in water, and makes this grain. All right? When we go ahead and make the alcohol from that grain and we put it through the car, the carbon dioxide and water are released back to the air out the exhaust pipe, and the solar energy explodes, and it's what runs your car. So it's CO2 and sunlight. Now, that's just the grain. So if you look at just the grain, it's a perfect loop, right? All the CO2 that went in goes out the exhaust pipe, makes the next crop of grain, you make the next alcohol, it just goes around in a circle. Of course, that doesn't happen with oil. It goes out the exhaust pipe, and there's no absorption mechanism built into the oil system. But wait a minute, we have 2.5 pounds of stock. And that's made from carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. So basically, when it comes to greenhouse gases, we're taking 3.5 pounds of carbon dioxide out of the air every time we use a pound of grain for alcohol. So we're actually taking more out of the air than we go out the tailpipe of the car. That's still not anywhere close. Because what you weren't taught in school is that for almost every plant and every tree that you see outside this classroom, you only see half of it. The amount of root mass compared to the top mass of a plant, on average, is equal. So here you got 3.5 pounds of roots that are all made of carbon dioxide, sunlight, and water. So now you're up to 3.5 pounds with the roots. So if you add all that up, when you make your alcohol from the pound of grain, you're getting 7 pounds of CO2 impounded. We're not even close to done. The other thing you weren't taught in school, yes?
Doesn't that begin to decompose and give off methane, which is a worse gas than CO2?
He asked, if you didn't hear it, he's saying, doesn't it decompose, make methane, which is a worse greenhouse gas than CO2? No, it would actually decompose to carbon dioxide slowly in the soil if it wasn't first eaten by other organisms and made part of their biomass. So slowly it does, it does first become part of the soil biomass, and some of it does go back to the air. But let me go a little further, because we're going to see we're dwarfing this. Now, everybody in school has been taught this thing about plants, right? Plants have roots. And the roots absorb nutrients and water, which the plant needs, and it goes uphill like this. And if you got a little bit better education, it was explained to you that the way it got up there is that plants have little holes in their leaves, and they evaporate water out, and that creates suction, which pulls the water up. And this is basically how they explain plant biology to you, even to ag students in college. Everything you know is wrong. Because up here, when a plant makes carbohydrates, it pumps sugar down through the roots, out through the roots, and into the soil. Why would it do that? Anybody have a guess?
Feed the microbes.
Very, very good. Feed the microbes. And why is that good? You'll see in a moment. So, we've known this for a long time.